What up, everybody? Let's get right to it. I should have put this out a little bit earlier. I saw the movie Thursday night, like as soon as you possibly could have seen the movie. I wrote a review on Letterboxd and stuff, but I just didn't get to sitting down and making a video review, which I did plan to do. But at this point, I think everyone's seen the movie, and the only interest anyone's gonna have in hearing anyone talk about this movie is by hearing about spoilers. So let's talk about spoilers. Let's talk about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I have a lot to say about this movie. It should be interesting to see how long I'm going to end up rambling on about it. But I do. I have a lot to say about this movie. To naturally bridge myself into a critique, let me talk a little bit about expectations. For one, I am very much more interested in what DC has been doing with their movies than what Marvel has been doing, which is kind of a controversial statement, I realize, because everyone loves the fucking Marvel movies. I'm not going to get super into my whole criticism of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what I think it's done to cinema to a certain extent. I'm very well documented. I'll put links in the description to different videos where I've gone on in great length about that. So in this video, I'm just going to keep it at I'm more fan of what DC is doing because I feel like there is a much clearer idea that's in the Warner Brothers DC initiative, where it's like, you're a filmmaker, you get to make a movie, you are in charge of making this movie, it's going to be your movie. It's not Kevin Feige and his minions saying, here's the movie we're going to make, and it feels very corporate, and I need to stop. I need to stop because everyone's going to hate me, and I don't want to take the time to explain it because I've done it so many times, and it's honestly frustrating. So, yeah, suffice it to say, I like DC. I like what they've been doing, even though I don't even think they've been entirely successful. I really liked Man of Steel a lot the first time I saw it. I rewatched it again a couple days before seeing Batman v Superman in preparation. And while I do still think there are some really incredible things about that movie, visually, perhaps, if the color palette would have been a little brighter. Personally, I'm not too bothered by that. I think the vast majority of the movie, and its kind of darker, grim look, is actually quite beautiful, and it's a stunning visual work. Zack Snyder has proven himself to be able to do that. Watchmen, for me personally, at least the director's cut of Watchmen, is tied for that best comic book movie title. Given that I felt that way, I thought it was a pretty safe bet that Zack was going to be the guy to do the ultimate superhero team-up movie right. You have the two most iconic superheroes battling, quote unquote, and you would think that he would be the right choice for that. This movie, Batman v Superman, from the beginning, I was stoked about for that reason. Zack Snyder directing this team-up movie. I don't know if you guys remember that announcement at Comic-Con, I believe, where the reading from Dark Knight Returns was read, and you got the image of the Batman and Superman logo flash up on the screen. Everyone goes insane. From that moment, I was really into this idea. The first trailer, that first teaser, was insane. I thought it looked so awesome. I couldn't believe how cool this was gonna be. I thought the marketing continued. We got a second trailer that was kind of abysmal, I might even say. I mean, it was rough. The really weird spoiler, just giving away that Doomsday's in this thing, giving away that Wonder Woman's in this thing, giving away that Batman and Superman are going to make up and fight together. The issue, of course, wasn't that we couldn't have predicted this. Of course, we knew that Batman and Superman were eventually going to get together. Not sexually, although that would have been interesting, but that they would have eventually teamed up. They're going to fight some other threat. We didn't need to know that Wonder Woman was involved in that equation. We didn't need to know that Doomsday was involved in that equation. These would have been nice surprises to get the first time you're sitting in the theater watching the movie. That's how I feel about that. They kind of self-corrected a little bit after that trailer was put out. They totally took out any marketing for Doomsday and Wonder Woman at that point, and we just got straight up Batman and Superman, and that's what we were focusing on. Now, having seen this movie, ooh, it's interesting, man. This is an interesting, I'll say, kind of failure of a movie, but a fascinating one. And I take a fascinating bad movie over a bland movie that makes me feel nothing any day. You know? And there's a lot to talk about with this movie. And I think that is credit. I think you have to give credit, even if it's unsuccessful in a lot of different ways. There are things to talk about. The first one I want to dig right into is Batman and Superman as characters. Of course, Ben Affleck is our new Batman. This movie does a really strange thing where it gives us this new Batman and kind of throws us into this new Batman, this new character, and then just expects us to make up his backstory from all of the other material we've seen Batman in. Which, you know, wouldn't be a huge issue if they didn't completely reboot the character. I mean, this new Batman is just a fucking psycho who just straight up murders people throughout this movie, stabbing people, setting people on fire, exploding people, you know, crashing into people and making them flip over. Like, fuck, he's insane. This Batman doesn't give a shit. There's that line in the movie where he's like, talking about what they should do about Superman. And he's like, if there's a 1% chance that this guy could be the cause of our demise, we need to treat that as an absolute certainty. That's not the exact quote, of course, but it's the gist of it. And he just doesn't care. He is much more willing to kill, maybe not an innocent, but a good person on the off chance that that might be a bad person. And that's what happens with Superman. Okay, let's just get into this. Henry Cavill. No. Okay, I don't like him. He's not a good Superman. He was a lot better in Man of Steel, I think, than he was in this movie. He has some dreadful dialogue moments. And I mean dreadful. You saw that, like, TV spot where he's like, the bat is dead, bury it. That line, oh my god. Honestly, I find Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman to just be really cold. He doesn't make me feel anything. That moment in this movie where they approach giving him humanity, I did like the scene where he comes home with groceries to Lois's apartment and she's in the bathtub, and he gets in the bathtub and starts splashing around and making out with her, and he says a line to her, and it's like, it feels like a human moment. Like, you believe that he's a guy and she's a girl and they like each other, and it's like, you get it, you know? For the vast majority of this movie, of Man of Steel, but more so this one, there's just no human in there. I don't feel that beating heart. And I guess you could be like, yeah, well, it's because he's an alien. He's from Krypton. He's not a normal guy. But it's like, again, I don't feel like that's a sufficient excuse for poor development or poor characterization on the part of the writing or Cavill himself. He just doesn't have a charisma. I don't think. And when he gets angry and violent, that charisma goes from, 25 out of 100 to a 5. And you can't possibly care. Pit him against this new Batman, who is also this emotionally vacant, tortured, angry, sad, old man who we know nothing about. How are we supposed to care? How are we supposed to give a shit about these two people coming together? If you don't set it up from a character front, you damn better well set it up from a plot front. And that doesn't even happen. The motivation for Batman and Superman to be fighting each other is so convoluted and strange and undercooked that we spend an hour and 45 minutes getting to them coming to punch and kick each other, and by the time it happens, there's nothing to feel. You know, this conflict is so hyped up. This movie is so hyped up. You're going to see Batman versus Superman. Isn't that going to be crazy? Well, kind of. The movie they're in is batshit. But their actual fight is like, what, 7.5 minutes of the movie? Like, roughly? It wasn't bad. I do think there was some overuse of shaky cam in that fight sequence between them, and there wasn't a whole lot of tangible action where you could like really tell, oh god, he got hit hard. There were moments of that in their fight which were awesome for sure. They got some moments where you're watching it in the theater and you're like, ooh, ugh. Not as many as I would have liked, but they are there. I think the more coherent moments of action in this movie are really impressive. And, those happen when the action isn't glazed over with, like an obscene amount of CGI and debris and destruction and like people crashing and falling and, into abandoned buildings and stuff collapsing. Like when there's actual clear fight choreography and you can witness that, the action is pretty spectacular. Another standout moment as far as that's concerned, I think, is the whole nightmare sequence that you see, where it's kind of like Mad Max-ish, and he's taking out all these guys, and you kind of get the allusion to, Dark Side, Justice League stuff, as you kind of pick up on later. Personally, I didn't even pick up on that until after I saw the movie and was reading into it a little bit, that they were kind of hinting towards Dark Side. I'm not familiar with Batman as far as the comics go, with Superman as far as the comics go, Justice League. Honestly, the only comics I ever read growing up were Spider-Man, so that's the extent of my comic knowledge. But I wasn't aware of that until I looked into it. Now, knowing some of those little hints, I do think it's pretty cool that Zack Snyder involved those things in the film. The things that he also did to tease Justice League, like the security cam footage of the other Justice League members, that was weak. That was just... I did really like the Flash one. I can't wait to see Ezra Miller as the Flash. The Flash one was cool because, again, it wasn't super showy. You got the idea of what was happening, the little glitch in the security cam footage, and the guy getting taken out and stopped. You could tell, all right, he was fast. He was like a lightning bolt, and he did something, and he accomplished something. The Aquaman one was so stupid. First of all, why Aquaman? Like, maybe you can explain this later, but I don't think that's a valid excuse for this movie. Like, so what? So we've never known about these Atlantean creatures, and then we get a camera close to like a ship or something, or like an opening, and then Aquaman swimming out to be like, hey, what's up? I'm Aquaman. I'm Jason Momoa. Look at me. And it's like, I I don't give a shit. And he throws his fucking like trident at the camera or whatever. It was stupid. The cyborg one looked like something off of a TV show, really cheap. That one was just irrelevant to me. As far as Wonder Woman goes, who has an actual presence in this movie, I thought Gal Gadot did a fantastic job. You know, this movie's about Batman and Superman, but I think she and Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor are actually the two big takeaways from this movie as things that really worked and worked well. Jesse Eisenberg is given a whacked out, kooky, crazy, bizarre performance in this movie, which I've seen a lot of people criticize really harshly. I don't know. Personally, look, people don't fucking smile in this movie. Like, it's 2.5 hours long, and everyone is somber and depressed and upset for that entire time. So, when you get Jesse Eisenberg, who is clearly, you know, having fun playing this character and actually developing some kind of character, I take that over a lot of what's in this movie. I enjoyed his weird little mannerisms. I know people are saying that he's like mimicking the Joker. I don't see that at all. I felt like this character was unique. I liked his little weird like his little weird mannerisms and little interjections, little weird vocal interjections. It was fun. And though he ended up having a really stupid plan, like that is all based on chance to get Batman and Superman to fight each other, it was weird. His plan, I can't even really explain it to you. I sat and watched this movie in amazement thinking, am I just dumb? Like, what the hell is he trying to do here? Look, to get into the substance there, the development of Doomsday was also another convoluted thing. First of all, I don't see how Michael Shannon mixed with Jesse Eisenberg creates that. But whatever. That's nitpicky, I suppose. The Doomsday creature. Look, they went out and decided to do Death and Return of Superman. That kind of arc, right? And I gotta be honest, I think that's the best part of this movie as far as decision goes for story. I think the ending of this movie is really, really satisfying up until a point, and by that point, I mean the last 2 seconds when, you know, the movie basically flips you off and is like, hey, you know that 20-minute sequence of mourning and yeah, never mind that. Ending was really cool. I really liked the handling of the death of Superman. I thought that it actually did. It made me feel something for Henry Cavill's Superman. I got to admit, after he stabs that kryptonite spear into Doomsday, and they're having the funeral, and Lois gets the little envelope with the wedding ring in it, I was like, oh my god. And I almost got a little choked up at that. For a movie that I wasn't even emotionally invested in. I can't even imagine. You know, like, comparing this to a Nolan movie, like, all of the Nolan Batman movies, say what you will about The Dark Knight Rises, I think The Dark Knight Rises is great. Say what you will about those movies, they all have such terrific wrap-ups. Like, the last little final few moments that lead to the credits are always really good. Imagining what this Batman v Superman ending is, imagining that tied into a movie that was fantastic overall, I could have been crying in the theater. Because I was legitimately moved by a few images. So, the Doomsday decision, the Doomsday creature himself, I wasn't super into. I did like Wonder Woman fighting him. She kicked ass. Wonder Woman was so cool in this movie, guys. Holy shit. So fucking cool. But didn't like Doomsday the creature that much. Liked the death of Superman angle. I think it pussies out. Look, we all know Superman's going to come back. I've seen several interviews with Zack Snyder now where it's very clear that he was kind of forced into including that last second to show that he's not really dead, guys. Yeah, we all knew that. You didn't need to put it in the movie. It totally ruined all of my emotional investment. Nonetheless, I do appreciate in general the direction they went with it. Um, it's just that, Lex Luthor's creation of the Doomsday was just bizarre. And I mean, I won't lie. When he was in there doing his weird ritual and like crying and cutting his hand open and spilling blood on Michael Shannon, I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm interested about this. I'm interested in what's going on. This is really weird, but that's about as far as I went with that. I do think the Death of Superman angle does build character and build emotional connection to a character that we don't really have much of a reason to care about. It also helps build this movie's concept because basically the idea here is that Ben Affleck is this seasoned Batman who's been around fighting crime, kicking ass, branding people with his bat thing for a long time now, like 20 years. Now you have Superman, this angry, misunderstood alien who has been labeled by the public as both the great messiah and as this evil terrorist hell-bent on, destroying mankind. It's an interesting setup. It's an interesting idea. I can see how Zack Snyder is probably like developing this movie and having philosophical conversations about what Batman means for society and what Superman means for society. And there's a lot of attempt here to kind of like connect us to it by, throwing in some like news footage and clips of people like Anderson Cooper, various people discussing the ethics of Superman. You have Holly Hunter, who plays this senator who is bringing up this idea that, hey, maybe Superman isn't great. Maybe the fact that he's caused all this destruction and chaos isn't great. Maybe just because he saved the world, the fact that he's here in the first place caused all of these people to die. He put us on a trajectory to this horrible path, to this horrible reality. I mean, interesting concept, interesting philosophic ideas. However, the execution, because of a movie that I think was just absolutely butchered in the editing room, didn't work out. I'm very curious to see that extended R-rated cut of this movie because I think there's probably going to be a lot more development. There's probably going to be a lot more explanation. There's probably going to be, on the development front, a lot more character development for Batman, which I would love to see. We're probably going to get more of the philosophic, kind of intellectual talk that maybe had to be cut from this movie in favor of putting an action sequence in, or maybe it being too confusing for a mainstream audience or something like that. I don't know. I hope that's the case. I hope that there's going to be another version of this movie because I do trust Zack Snyder's vision, and I think he is a really talented filmmaker, and I would like to see that. I hope it's a lot better. However, this setup, this approach leads to what is the most relentlessly dark, grueling, depressing, brutal superhero movie I've ever seen. I have no idea how the hell this gets a PG-13 rating. I mean, I do know how. I know how it works. It's because no one's blood sprays anywhere. No one says fuck. There's no nudity. That's how the MPA works. It's bullshit. But I said a little bit of this earlier. There are several brutal stabbings, shootings, people's bodies getting broken, people getting set on fire, implied child rape and murder, threat of torture and murder of Superman's mom by a fucking blowtorch. Nobody smiles in the movie. It's a super bummer of a movie. It's not a good time, Like, everyone goes into this movie, yay, Batman v Superman, we're gonna see Batman v Superman. I saw it in a packed, sold-out theater, opening night. The energy was so high, and by the time the movie was over, you're just exhausted. It took me a good 30 minutes before I was even able to have a conversation about, oh, this thing was cool, this thing was fun, because I was just so taken down by this downtrodden tone that never lets up. You can make an argument that it does because there are a few funny lines here and there, but they do seem super out of place. The one that I think actually worked in this movie was a line that I hated in that second trailer, which is where they're like, you know, Superman's like, "Is she with you?" He's like, "Oh, I thought she was with you." In the movie, it's actually a lot funnier because the comedic timing is adjusted, so you actually get to see them work together for a second and just fight because they have to fight. And then after they've been fighting, they have this little exchange like, "Oh, wait, where the hell did this come from?" So, yeah, that was funnier, I think, in the movie. The violence, though, the brutality of it. Honestly, at this point, when that solo Batman movie comes out that Ben Affleck is hopefully going to direct, they really just need to bite the bullet. Go hard R. Just go hard R. At this point, these movies aren't in any conceivable way for children. If I was a parent, I don't want my kid to see this. This thing is fucking harsh. Like, dark shit, violent shit, and a lot of death, and a lot of sadness, and a lot of suffering. It's bleak. Ben Affleck, I do think, partially saves this Batman character, which I don't think is very well developed. He commits a lot to this performance. He gets a lot out of the dialogue that I think is kind of weak in the first place. You know, I think he's going to be something special eventually. There are a lot of people already out there right now saying, "He's the best Batman we've ever seen. He's the best Bruce Wayne we've ever seen." I don't even think it's close. I think there was a lot more nuance, a lot more personality, a lot more to the character of Bruce Wayne in the Nolan movies to take apart, to invest in, than there is in this. I think there's barely anything. Sure, he looks cool. The new Batman suit is awesome. But he's not really given a chance to become anything. So I think that's a little premature to say. I think the potential is there for sure. I do believe it's going to happen. I do believe he's going to end up being a really good Batman. And the first scene in the movie where he's going into the 9/11 and rescuing Scoop McNairy, you bought into that. I was with him from the beginning there. But as far as the movie goes, the movie goes on and on and on. There's not a lot of development there. Hopefully it comes. It's not there yet. So, things I liked a lot. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. Wonder Woman. So cool, so sexy, so kick-ass. And honestly, the setup of the Justice League, with the exception of those really dumb security camera footage things, was pretty cool. I like that Batman is going to be setting up the Justice League. I like the hints of Darkseid. I like the last scene. That's actually probably the coolest moment in the movie, I think. The last scene in the jail after Lex gets his head shaved and he's completely insane now. The whole ding, 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 ding thing. And then you see, Batman, the lights flash on and he's behind him. And that was a really cool scene. And I think there's a lot of potential moving forward. I think the main theme here is potential. A lot of it was squandered here. It's just a really badly edited and strung together selection of scenes that may have worked really well on their own. And I might see one by itself and be like, that's a pretty cool scene. They're strung together in a way that is often incomprehensible as far as the plot goes. Emotionally, it doesn't connect with me. There's so much to take in with it. I am honestly curious to see it again. I may see it again in theaters. I may wait for the extended cut, but I'm definitely going to be checking it out again at some point. As far as this movie goes, yeah, it's a mess. And for now, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Batman v Superman. Let's talk about it in the comments. I want to talk to some people about it. Let's talk about some theories. If you have any weird theories that you think are cool that you want to throw at me, I would love to hear them. I like talking about this stuff, so go ahead and leave a comment. Let's look forward to Suicide Squad now. I think that movie is going to be fucking awesome. So, Dawn of Justice, it's all over the place, but I think we could end up going in a better direction. So, anyway, that's all I got for you. Brandon Vander signing out. See you later. Right. You have the two most iconic superhero movie, sorry, the two most iconic superheroes battling, quote unquote, and you would think that he would be the right choice for that. This movie, Batman v Superman, from the beginning, I was stoked about for that reason. Zack Snyder directing this team up movie. I don't know if you guys remember that announcement at Comic-Con, I believe, where the reading from Dark Knight Returns was read, and you got the image of the Batman and Superman logo flash up on the screen. Everyone goes insane. From that moment, I was really into this idea. The first trailer, that's in the Warner Brothers DC initiative, where it's like, you're a filmmaker, you get to make a movie, you are in charge of making this movie, it's going to be your movie. It's not Kevin Feige and his minions saying, here's the movie we're going to make, and it feels very corporate, and I need to stop. I need to stop because everyone's going to hate me, and I don't want to take the time to explain it because I've done it so many times, and it's honestly frustrating. So, yeah, suffice it to say, I like DC. I like what they've been doing, even though I don't even think they've been entirely successful. I really liked Man of Steel a lot the first time I saw it. I rewatched it again. I am very much more interested in what DC has been doing with their movies than what Marvel has been doing, which is kind of a controversial statement, I realize, because everyone loves the fucking Marvel movies. I'm not going to get super into my whole criticism of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what I think it's done to cinema to a certain extent. I'm very well documented. I'll put links in the description to different videos where I've gone on in great length about that. So in this video, I'm just going to keep it at, I'm more fan of what DC is doing because I feel like there is a much clearer idea. A couple days before seeing Batman v Superman in preparation, and while I do still think there are some really incredible things about that movie, visually, perhaps, if the color palette would have been a little brighter. Personally, I'm not too bothered by that. I think the vast majority of the movie, and its kind of darker, grim look, is actually quite beautiful, and it's a stunning visual work. Zack Snyder has proven himself to be able to do that. Watchmen, for me personally, at least the director's cut of Watchmen, is tied for that best comic book movie title. Given that I felt that way, I thought it was a pretty safe bet that Zack was going to be the guy to do the ultimate superhero team-up movie right. What up, everybody? Let's get right to it. I should have put this out a little bit earlier. I saw the movie Thursday night, like as soon as you possibly could have seen the movie. I wrote a review on Letterboxd and stuff, but I just didn't get to sitting down and making a video review, which I did plan to do. But at this point, I think, everyone's seen the movie, and the only interest anyone's going to have in hearing anyone talk about this movie is by hearing about spoilers. So let's talk about spoilers. Let's talk about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I have a lot to say about this movie. It should be interesting to see how long I'm going to end up rambling on about it. But I do. I have a lot to say about this movie. To naturally bridge myself into a critique, let me talk a little bit about expectations. For